I want to lay two photographs on the table between us. Same subject, two different ages, and I'll wager everything I own you'll swear they can't be the same thing. Here's the first. The whole universe as an infant. It's baby photo. And it is smooth. Smooth like a wall of fog. Smooth like the top of still milk. The same soft glow whichever way you turn it, and not one feature on it worth pointing a finger at. And here's the second. The universe grown up, the one out the window tonight. And it is the most riotously structured thing there is. Blazing galaxies, whole cities of them, and between the cities, holes of pure nothing, so wide the mind slides straight off the edge. Same subject, baby and grown. And the whole of tonight is one question. What happened in between?
What happened in between? That's not a small thing you've brought me. That's the middle chapter of the entire story, the bit that turns a hot, smooth fog into a night sky with things in it. And the wonder of it, the part I've genuinely never gotten over in all these years, is how little it takes to do the job. You'd expect a machine this big to need a whole workshop of forces. It needs one.
1. All right, I'll bite. What does it take?
One force, and nothing else in the room. Not the strongest force, not the busiest, the patientest. The one that holds you in your chair right now and pulls the apple off the branch. Newton's own. Gravity, doing the whole of it, from that smooth grey infant to the web of fire out the window, with nothing up its sleeve at all.
And I'm going to guess from the way you said it that it's the boring one.
The boring one. No cleverness, no tricks, no sudden moves. It just pulls, the same dull, faithful tug, in every direction, everywhere, always. And here's its one great virtue, it never ever gets tired. Give a force that dull the whole age of the universe to work in, and never once let it rest, and dull turns out to be exactly, precisely what you want. Patience is the whole talent.
See, that's where you lose me already, because gravity built all of that is an enormous claim for a force whose main job in my life is making me drop the toast. So slow it right down. You keep saying the baby was smooth. How smooth is smooth? Because a room looks smooth to me from the doorway, and it's full of furniture.
Fair. Let me give it to you properly. Cast your mind back to the oldest light, the afterglow, the baby photo itself, the glow that comes at you from every direction of the sky at once. When we look at it, it is the same temperature everywhere. Turn one way, turn the other, look dead behind you, the same faint warmth to a whisker. There is no, here is hotter and there is cooler. There is just the one even glow.
The same warmth in every single direction. So not tidy room smooth.
Not remotely. If the whole sky were an ocean, it wouldn't have a wave on it. It wouldn't have a ripple to catch your eye. It would be flatter than any flat thing you have ever laid eyes on. A grey so even that there is nothing anywhere on it to let you say, this spot, rather than that spot. That is the canvas we start from. Almost perfectly, maddeningly, nothing to see anywhere smooth. Remember that, because everything hangs on it.
And that's exactly the bit my gut refuses. Here's my whole objection in one breath. Smooth things stay smooth. That's what smooth is for. You stir the soup till it's even, you walk away, and it just sits there being soup. Smooth is where things go to settle down and quit. So a smooth universe ought to stay smooth. It should be boring forever.
That is precisely what everyone's gut says. And for soup, you're dead right. For milk, right again. For very nearly everything you have ever met in your kitchen or your life, smooth is the resting place. The quiet ending, where a thing winds all the way down and finally stops fidgeting. Your instinct isn't foolish. It's built from a lifetime of watching stirred things settle.
I can hear a but the size of a house coming down the hall.
The size of a house. Here it comes. When gravity is the thing doing the watching, and gravity is patient enough to outweight everything else in the room, smooth is not the resting place at all. Smooth is the top of the hill.
The top of the hill, meaning unstable, meaning it wants to roll off.
Meaning smooth is a pencil balanced on its point. Look at it, perfectly upright, perfectly still, not a tremble to it. And it is the least stable thing in the world. The faintest breath and it's gone, and once it starts to go, it never comes back. Under gravity, a smooth universe is that pencil. It looks like it could stand there forever, and it is actually poised on a knife's edge, just waiting for the smallest excuse to fall.
Hang on, that's genuinely backwards from everything I know. Why? Why does gravity flip smooth from stable and boring all the way over to about to tip? What's it doing that the soup isn't?
It has one habit no other force in the world has, and that single habit changes everything. Gravity rewards the rich. Wherever there is a little more stuff than average, a spot a hair denser than the ground around it, gravity pulls a little harder right there, on that spot, above its neighbors. And pulling harder drags in yet more stuff. And more stuff, gathered in, means it pulls harder still, on a wider circle, dragging in more again.
Oh, that's a nasty little loop. The more you've got, the more you gather. The more you gather, the more you've got.
The nastiest loop in all the cosmos, and the most creative one there is. The rich get richer, and there is no natural break on it anywhere in the machine. A spot that starts a hair denser does not politely stay a hair denser. It runs away from the pack. It gets denser and faster, stripping stuff clean off its neighbors and heaping it onto itself, until where there was a whisper of extra, there stands a mountain.
Give me something I can actually picture. Every day. Somewhere I could watch the rich get richer thing happen with my own 2 eyes.
A raindrop on a window pane. The bigger a drop grows, the more of the little ones it brushes and swallows as it slides. And the more it swallows, the fatter and faster it gets, and the more it sweeps up. The fat drops eat the thin ones, and the pane you're left with has a few big runners racing down it, and a lot of bare, clear glass in between. Same rule exactly. Now do that with all the matter there is, for billions of years.
A few big runners and bare glass between them. And meanwhile the poor spot next door, the one that started a hair thinner than average,
Gets robbed, bleeds its stuff away to the greedy neighbor, thins out further, and empties toward nothing at all. So the differences do not wash out the way they wash out in your stirred soup. They amplify, every last one of them. Gravity takes the faintest unevenness you can possibly picture and, given only enough time, blows it up into the whole difference between a blazing galaxy and a black and empty void.
So the smoothness was doomed from the very start. The instant one spot was even slightly ahead of the pack, the whole game was rigged toward lumps.
Rigged toward lumps from the very first moment. Smoothness under gravity is a rumor that cannot keep itself. Leave it alone and it unsmooths, the exact opposite of your soup. And it does it slowly. That is the thing to hold on to through all of this. This is never a bang, it is a grind. Gravity works on the faintest edge for eon upon eon upon eon, and only across stretches of time you cannot really hold in your head does the whisper finally become the mountain.
Okay, but now you've handed me a brand new problem, and it's a big one. If gravity always wins, if the rich always get richer with no break anywhere, then why isn't the whole universe one single gigantic lump by now? Why didn't every last scrap of everything just fall together into one monstrous heap? Why galaxies, plural? Why a web with holes in it and not one enormous ball?
Now that is the sharp question, and I'm delighted you got there on your own steam. Because there is a second thing going on the whole time, hauling hard the other way. The whole universe is expanding, stretching, every part of it drifting away from every other part, all at once, the entire while gravity is straining to pull it back together. There are two hands on the rope, and they pull in opposite directions.
So it's a tug of war, gravity hauling the stuff into clumps, and the expansion hauling it all apart.
A tug of war across the whole of space at once, in every spot, without pause. And here is how it settles, patch by patch. Where a region is dense enough, gravity wins locally. It digs in, holds that patch together against the stretch, and a clump forms and survives. But everywhere the stretch is winning, the stuff just keeps thinning and drifting and emptying out toward nothing. So you never ever get the one big lump. You get gravity winning in scattered pockets with drained, widening gulfs in between them.
Pockets where gravity won, gulfs where the expansion won. And that, hang on, that's already the shape of the whole answer, isn't it? That's why it ends up structured instead of one ball. A few places clump hard, and everywhere else empties out around them.
That is the seed of the entire web, and you felt it 2 full movements early. Hold on to it tight, pockets and gulfs. We will come right back to it and find it is exactly, to the letter, what is out your window tonight. But first, I owe you the seeds themselves. Because gravity's amplifier is a magnificent machine, and a machine like that needs one thing before it can so much as switch on.
Right, you said it needs a head start, a spot already a hair ahead of the rest for it to grab. Because if the baby were perfectly, exactly smooth, no spot richer than any other anywhere ever,
then the pencil never tips and you wait forever. Perfect smoothness, with not one single grain out of place, would sit there dead flat for all eternity, because there would be no richest spot anywhere for gravity to reward, no crack for it to work its fingers into and start prying, no seed, no growth, a featureless grey nothing, world without end. So the smoothness cannot have been perfect, it only looks perfect.
So there had to be seeds, tiny bumps, already there on day one for gravity to get hold of. And, wait, you said smooth to a whisker, not smooth to nothing, a whisker, so there were already bumps in it.
You've been listening, and you have walked us straight to the best part of the whole night. Smooth to a whisker, but not to nothing. Look harder at that baby photo, at the oldest light there is, and the perfect evenness cracks under you. There are speckles in it. Faint, faint mottling. Here a patch a touch warmer, there a patch a touch cooler than its surroundings. The very smallest freckles on the smoothest face that ever was.
The ripples. You told me about those, a good while back. The tiny hot and cold specks buried in the oldest light. You called them the seeds of everything, and then you rather cruelly wandered off to talk about something else entirely and left me hanging on it.
I did, didn't I? Well, here is where I finally settle that debt. Those freckles, those minute, warm and cool patches, are the seeds. Every one of them. Because a patch a touch warmer is a patch a touch denser, a spot with a hair more stuff crammed into it than the neighbours it sits among. And you have just spent a quarter of an hour learning, from raindrops and pencils, exactly what gravity does with a spot that has a hair more stuff.
Robs the neighbours, runs away with it. The rich get richer. So those faint little freckles on the baby photo are the before, the whole thing. They're every galaxy out the window, but caught as a newborn speck.
Every single one of them is a galaxy, or a whole city of galaxies, or a great strand of the web, but caught as a newborn speck, far too faint to point a finger at. The mightiest structures in existence, every one sat there in the baby photo as freckles too faint to matter. And gravity has spent the entire age of the universe patiently, faithfully developing that photograph, one slow eon at a time, into the thing itself.
Let me sit in that for a second, because I think it's bigger than it first sounds. The map of where everything is now, Every galaxy, every city of them, every hole was already drawn, faintly, in the very oldest light there is. We're not looking at two different things in my two photographs. We're looking at the very same freckles. Once faint, now enormous.
The same freckles, the whole way through. The baby photo is not a pretty relic to hang on a wall. It is the blueprint. It is the plan of the house, drawn out complete before a single brick was ever laid. Every room, every wall, in the faintest pencil. And gravity is the slow, faithful builder who spent billions of years turning that plan into the standing thing, never once deviating from the drawing.
All right, I have to ask the impertinent one, or you'll think less of me. Where did the freckles come from? You said gravity needs a seed. Fine, granted. But something had to freckle the smooth face to begin with. What did the freckling?
And there you have put your hand right on a door I am going to have to ask you not to open tonight. Where those first freckles came from, what stamped the very faintest unevenness onto a universe that started out so unspeakably smooth, is one of the deepest questions there is. And the answer, such as we even have one, does not live in this chapter. It lives in the very first sliver of time. That is a whole night of its own, further down the road.
You're doing the teacup thing again, setting the mystery down ever so gently and sliding it clear to the far end of the table where I can't quite reach it.
I am shameless about it, and I won't pretend otherwise. But it is an honest cup, I promise you that. We truly do not, tonight, need to know where the seeds came from in order to sit here and watch gravity grow them. The freckles are there, in the baby photo. We can see them, measure them with our own instruments. And that is all we need in hand to build ourselves a universe.
Fine, I'll leave your teacup exactly where it sits. So, gravity has its freckles. Gravity does its rich get richer thing. The freckles grow up into galaxies. Honestly, that already sounds like a finished story to me. Where's this twist you keep hinting at behind your hand?
It sounds finished. And if the universe were made only of the stuff you can see, the ordinary stuff, the stuff that shines and glows, the story would be finished, and it would also be flatly, provably wrong, because it would not have had the time. That tidy little story you just told me runs out of clock long before it ever reaches a galaxy.
Wouldn't have had time? We've got billions of years to play with here. That's not enough.
Not for the ordinary matter on its own. Here is the snag, and it's a real one. Take those faint freckles, feed them nothing but the ordinary stuff, and let gravity grind away at them for the whole entire age of the universe, and the lumps you would get at the end are feeble, wispy, nothing remotely like the great blazing galaxies out the window. The ordinary matter, left to its own devices, simply could not have gathered itself fast enough. The sums do not come close.
Why not, though? If the freckles were sitting right there in the baby photo, and gravity was already switched on and doing its faithful thing, why didn't the ordinary stuff just get going the very instant the freckles existed?
Because something was holding it smooth. Something was actively fighting gravity in those early days and, for the ordinary matter, winning. Every single time an ordinary matter freckle tried to gather itself up and clump, something came barreling along and shoved it flat again. Over and over. Gravity would build, this other thing would bulldoze, and the ordinary matter got nowhere.
Shoved flat? By what? What in the world is strong enough to sit on gravity's chest and hold a whole universe smooth against its will?
Light.
Light. You're telling me that light held the matter down?
Light. Remember what the early universe actually was, before that baby photo ever got taken, before the fog cleared and let the light out. It was a furious, blazing plasma. Matter and light not politely side by side, but tangled all the way up inside each other, the light crashing through the matter without a single moment's pause. And light pushes. Gently, yes, but there was a colossal amount of it, and it never once let up, and gentle times relentless is a genuine force. Light is a pressure.
So the ordinary matter is trying to clump under gravity.
And the instant it starts to, the light blasting through it shoves back outward and flattens the little clump before it can ever take hold. Picture the froth on a hard boiling pot. You cannot get that froth to settle and pile itself up in one corner, no matter how you tilt the pot, because the whole thing is being churned violently the entire time. That is what the light did to the ordinary matter. It churned it, kept it frothed, kept it flat and smooth for age after age.
So it's a standoff. Gravity pulls a lump together, light shoves it straight back apart. Gravity pulls, light shoves.
Over and over and over, for ages on end. A dead stalemate. Gravity says gather, light says scatter. Neither one ever lands the knockout blow, and the ordinary matter just sits there in the middle, spinning its wheels, staying flat, while the clock runs down, and the head start it desperately needed trickles away between its fingers.
But hold on, the light plainly isn't holding the matter down today. I can look out and see galaxies. The matter obviously clumped in the end. So why did light win back then and lose later on? What changed?
The universe cooled and thinned and calmed right down. Back at the very start, it was searingly hot and impossibly dense. Light everywhere, ferocious, packed in unbearably tight against the matter. That is when it had its iron grip. But as everything expanded and cooled, the light steadily lost its ferocity and eventually let go of the matter altogether. That release is coming a little later in tonight's story. But for the whole long early stretch, light is firmly in charge, and the ordinary matter is going precisely nowhere.
So if the ordinary matter is stuck spinning its wheels, and it genuinely cannot build the galaxies in time all by itself, then the ordinary matter cannot possibly be the whole story.
It cannot. And it isn't. Because there is another kind of matter in the room the entire time, sitting quietly off in the corner, ignored while we fuss over the stuff that shines, and it plays by a completely different set of rules than the ordinary stuff does. It does not spin its wheels. It never got stuck at all.
The invisible stuff, the dark matter. The thing you spent a whole evening telling me is most of the weight of everything there is, that nobody has ever once held a piece of, that we only ever feel by its pull.
That very thing. And now at last, you find out what it was for. What it has been quietly, patiently doing this whole time, off in its corner, while we cooed over the parts that glow. Tell me the one strange fact about dark matter that you carried up the stairs last time. The one fact that defines the whole of it.
It doesn't touch light. That was the entire dark of it. Doesn't shine, doesn't glow, doesn't cast so much as the faintest shadow. Light goes clean through it, as though it simply were not there at all. It ignores light completely.
It ignores light completely. Now hold that one fact right up against the problem we just walked ourselves into. The ordinary matter could not clump because light kept barreling through and shoving it smooth. But the dark matter does not feel that shove. Not even faintly. Not at all. The very same light that was frothing the ordinary matter, flattening it, holding it down for age after age, sails straight through the dark matter and does absolutely nothing whatsoever to it.
Oh, so the dark matter is never held back. Right from the very beginning, the dark matter is free.
Free. Free from the first instant there was anything to be free about. While the ordinary matter is trapped in its miserable standoff, gravity pulling, light shoving, wheels spinning, the dark matter feels only the gravity, only the pull, nothing pushing back on it, ever. So its freckles just grow, uninterrupted. From the very start, the dark matter is quietly running the entire rich-get-richer game all by itself, gathering itself into clumps, while the ordinary matter is still stuck being helpless froth.
So the invisible stuff got a head start, and not some little head start either.
An enormous one, a head start of ages. Every long age that the ordinary matter wasted spinning its wheels and getting nowhere, the dark matter spent building. So by the time the ordinary matter is finally let off its leash, the dark matter has already been at the work, unbothered and undisturbed for a very long while indeed. Where there were once faint dark freckles, there are now deep dark valleys, great wells of gravity dug out and waiting, laid across the whole of space in a definite pattern.
Wait, I want to be sure I've really got this. The dark matter has already made the shape. It has already laid out the whole structure, the frame, the scaffolding, the plan, while the ordinary matter was still frothing about doing precisely nothing.
The scaffolding. That is the word, and you found it yourself, which is the only way it ever really sticks. The dark matter built the scaffolding of the universe, the frame of the entire thing, long, long before the ordinary matter could so much as lift a finger to help. It dug the valleys, it raised the ridges between them. It drew, in pure invisible weight, the plan that the visible universe would one day come along and fill in.
So the architect of everything I can actually see
Is the one thing you cannot see. The invisible stuff drew the blueprint, alone, in the dark. And the glowing stuff turned up long afterward and coloured neatly inside the lines it had already been handed. It never chose where to go. It was told.
I need a proper moment with that one. The stuff that lights up, the galaxies, the stars, every last thing anyone ever looked up at and proudly called the universe. That's the paint. And the dark matter is the wall. And the wall went up first, in the dark, in a place where nobody could ever possibly have watched it happen.
The wall went up first, and it went up entirely alone, in the dark, felt by nothing in all the world but its own steady gravity. Everything that shines out your window tonight is decoration. Decoration hung upon a frame that was finished and standing before the lights were ever switched on. We have been admiring the paint this whole time and calling it the building.
Now, let me ask the obvious follow-up, because I simply can't not. Where's the dark matter now? Did it turn into the galaxies somewhere along the way? Did it get used up in the building?
Not at all. And this is one of the loveliest parts of the whole picture. It is all still there, every bit of it. Still the great bulk of everything, still by a mile the largest share of the cosmic weight. The galaxies never replaced the scaffolding, they only lit up inside it. Every galaxy you can see tonight sits cradled inside a vast, invisible cloud of dark matter, far larger than the galaxy itself. The frame it was born in, still holding it, there in the dark.
So the recipe hasn't changed. Most of the matter out there is still the invisible kind, and the glowing galaxies are the, what did we call it before? The sliver. The little bit that happens to catch the light.
The sliver that glows. The frame was always mostly dark, and it is mostly dark still. And here is a thing to comfort the skeptic in you. We do not just infer that frame from a story. We can point straight at it. The dark matter has real weight, and weight bends the very path of light that passes close by it. So where a great heap of the invisible stuff sits between us and something farther off, it warps and smears that distant light.
The bending of light. You showed me that one, a mass curving the path of a passing beam. So you can watch the light of some far-off thing get warped as it goes by.
And from exactly how it is warped, which way, how much, you can weigh and map the invisible heap that did the warping. We draw the dark scaffolding directly, with our instruments, by the fingerprints it leaves pressed into the light of whatever happens to be shining behind it. So it is not a fairy tale we tell to fill a gap. It is a frame we have traced and weighed and mapped, just never once by its own glow, because it hasn't got one to give.
All right, the scaffolding's real, it's mapped, it's most of what's out there. So, what finally lets the ordinary matter off the leash? What ends this wretched standoff?
The fog clearing. That very moment we've now stood in twice tonight. The moment the universe had cooled just enough that the atoms could form, and the light was set loose to fly free across space. The baby photo. That instant is not only when the oldest light streamed off toward us, it is the instant the light let go of the matter. Once the light flies free, it stops crashing through the ordinary stuff. It stops shoving. The churning stops. The froth is finished, all at once.
So the very thing that had been holding the ordinary matter smooth all this time just walks straight out of the room.
Walks out and shuts the door behind it. And the very instant it does, the ordinary matter, for the first time in the entire history of everything, is free to fall. Nothing is holding it flat anymore. No churning, no shoving, no relentless glare. Gravity has it at last, finally, entirely to itself, with no one arguing.
And there are these enormous dark valleys just sitting there, already dug out deep and waiting when it does.
Already dug, and deep, and ready, all across the whole sky. So the ordinary matter, released, unclenched, free at last after all those ages of getting nowhere, does the single most natural thing in the world. It falls. It pours downhill, into the dark valleys the invisible stuff carved out for it while it wasn't looking. It rolls into the wells. It floods into the frame that got quietly built all around it while it was helpless.
The paint finally runs into the grooves cut in the wall.
Into every last groove. And here is the payoff of the whole night, so lean in. The ordinary matter pours into the deepest of the valleys, and it piles up, and it gets denser and denser and denser still. And dense, cold gas that piles up deep enough does something the dark matter can never, ever do for all its weight. It catches fire.
It lights up. It makes stars.
It makes stars. The first stars flicker on, down inside the deepest dark valleys, and then whole crowds of them together, the first galaxies, kindling in the lowest wells of the invisible frame. The dark matter cannot shine. It just sits there, being weight, holding the shape. But the ordinary matter, pooled deep down in the dark matter's valleys, ignites. And all at once, the invisible scaffolding has visible lights strung along every single beam of it.
And before that, before the very first star ever caught, the whole universe was just dark, matter everywhere gathering away, but nothing shining anywhere at all.
Utterly dark. Completely. Think about it for a moment, because it's a strange and solemn thing. The baby photo's own light had long since faded past all seeing, cooled and stretched away to that faint, cold hiss we spoke of. And no star had yet been lit to take its place. So for a long, long age, the universe was full of matter, quietly gathering in the pitch black, with not one single point of light burning anywhere in the whole of it. A cosmos entirely in the dark.
The first dawn, then. After an age of total darkness, the first star switches on somewhere down in the frame, and then another, and then another.
And then another, and another, until the whole invisible web is slowly picked out in points of fire, strand by strand, the dark scaffolding lighting up along its length. That is the moment, the true dawn of everything, when the universe stopped being a dark and gathering nothing, and finally became a sky with lights in it, the first sky there ever was.
So that's why the galaxies are where they are. They're not scattered just anywhere at all. They lit up exactly where the dark matter had already dug the very deepest holes. The lights trace the frame.
The lights trace the frame. Every galaxy you can see is a flag planted on top of a mountain of dark matter you cannot. Show me where the galaxies glow, and you have shown me where the invisible scaffolding runs, hole for hole, ridge for ridge, thread for thread. The visible universe is nothing more nor less than a map of the invisible one. The bright bits are just the labels on it.
This is properly turning my whole picture inside out, I have to say. I walked in here tonight dead certain the galaxies were the universe, and the dark matter was some strange little footnote we felt by its pull. And you've calmly flipped the two of them clean over. The dark matter is the universe, the real structure, the frame, the shape. And the galaxies are the footnotes, the little bits that happen to catch fire.
You have got it exactly the right way round now, which is a genuinely hard thing to manage in one sitting. The stuff that shines is the minority, and it is the follower. It went precisely where it was told to go. The dark matter LED in the dark. The ordinary matter followed in the light and lit up the very path it had already been shown.
Now, I want to push hard on the growing up part because I've got a picture in my head and I need to know if it's right or if I'm about to embarrass myself. When I imagine some huge thing forming, I picture something enormous that then breaks apart. Like, one gigantic blob forms first, some vast pancake of stuff, and then it cracks and shatters into galaxies, the way a dried-out mudflat cracks apart into tiles. Big thing first, splinters down into small pieces. Is that how it went?
It's a natural picture. And it is exactly, precisely upside down. It went the other way round entirely. Not big thing shatters into small. Small things gather into big. You have the arrow of it pointing backwards.
The other way round. So, small first.
Small first, always. The dark matter's runaway starts everywhere at once, on the very tiniest of freckles, so the first things ever to actually pull themselves together are little. Modest clumps. Not galaxies yet, smaller and humbler than that, forming early, all over the place, all at the same time. And then those little clumps, each one carrying its own gravity, begin to feel and pull on one another across the dark.
And the rich get richer thing fires all over again, except now the rich are the little clumps themselves.
Now the clumps are the players. Little clumps drift together and merge into bigger clumps. Bigger clumps reach out and pull in their neighbors and grow bigger still. Galaxies come together into groups, and groups gather into great crowds, the clusters. It is a story of merging from bottom to top, of assembling upward, brick by brick, the small into the large, over and over and over, for billions of patient years.
But why do they stick when they meet? Two clumps drifting together. Why do they merge and stay, instead of just sailing straight past each other and carrying on their separate ways?
Because the dark matter moves slowly, gently, ponderously. It is not tearing around at wild speeds. It drifts, heavy and patient. So when two of these slow clumps finally meet, they can sink down into one another and settle, and their combined gravity holds them fast together, rather than screaming past at a lick and flying right on apart. Slow and heavy is exactly what you want if the job you've been given is to gather. Speed would only ever scatter it.
So it's built from the bottom up, bricks before walls, walls before the house, houses before the city. Not a mountain slowly eroding down into pebbles, pebbles slowly piling up into a mountain.
Bricks before the city, exactly so. And it is well worth nailing down hard because the wrong picture, the one giant thing shattering into bits, feels so terribly plausible, and it is so completely not what happened. The universe assembled itself upward from the smallest pieces toward the largest. The little things are the old things, the first things, and the giants, the great clusters, came last of all, built out of everything that had already gathered, patiently, long before them.
Now, here's a thing I genuinely want to know. Can we watch any of this? Any of it at all? Because it all sounds like a story about the deep past, and I can't exactly rewind the sky over my own house to check.
You can watch it though, and you already know the trick because you built the trick yourself right at the start of all this. Looking far out into space is looking back in time. The farther off a thing sits from you, the longer its light had to crawl to reach your eye, so the younger you catch it. The distance is the delay. Look far enough and you're looking at the past directly.
Right, light's a time machine. So the most distant galaxies of all.
Are the very youngest ones we can lay our eyes on. And when we look at them, they do not look like the calm, grand spirals in our own quiet neighborhood. They look rougher, smaller, more ragged, more misshapen. More of them tangled up and crashing and merging into one another, still visibly busy assembling themselves out of pieces. We are, quite literally, watching the bricks stack up into the city, just by looking far enough out toward the edge of everything we can see.
So the far-off sky isn't only far away, it's early. We are watching the web get built in the slowest slow motion there could ever be, just by turning our eyes out toward the edge.
Watching it get built, from the cheap seats, billions of years too late to lend a hand, but watching it happen all the same. Which carries us, at long last, to the thing you asked me for at the top of the night. Zoom all the way out. Forget one galaxy, forget one cluster. Stand outside the whole affair if you could, and look at where all the matter has finally ended up after these billions of years of gravity's slow and patient robbery. What do you see?
Tell me, give me the web. You've been dangling that word in front of me all evening like a ring of keys.
You see the single most beautiful thing I know how to describe to another person. You do not see galaxies sprinkled about at random like salt flung across a dark table. You see them strung, gathered up onto lines, long glowing filaments of galaxies, great threads of them running clear across the black. And where the threads happen to cross one another, you see great knots where the galaxies pile up thickest of all, in their densest crowds. Those knots are the clusters.
Threads and knots where the threads cross, like a net.
Like a net. And stretched between the threads, in places, great sheets, flat walls of galaxies, spanning distances that will not fit inside a human head, no matter which way you try to turn them. So, filaments and sheets and knots where they all come together. And then, this is the part that stops your breath in your chest. Between every single strand of it, the emptiness.
The holes, the nothing holes, right back from the very start of the night. This is your pockets and gulfs coming home to roost, isn't it? The pockets where gravity won, those are the threads and the knots, and the gulfs where the expansion won.
Are the voids. Vast, dark, near perfectly empty bubbles of space, so unthinkably enormous that a whole filament of blazing galaxies looks, next to one, like nothing more than a single thread of dew laid round the rim of a hole you could fall across for a lifetime and never reach the far side of. The matter all drained out of the voids, into the threads, into the knots, and left behind these colossal, silent cathedrals of nothing at all.
You said near perfectly empty. Near. So a void isn't truly completely empty. There's a difference hiding in that near.
There is a difference, though a thin one. A void is not a perfect vacuum. A few lonely galaxies do drift in there, stragglers that never made it onto a strand, marooned in the middle. But so shockingly few, spread so far apart, it may as well be nothing. Picture a galaxy stranded in the dead center of a void. It would look out and see almost nothing. The blackest, loneliest places there are lie not past the last star, but in the hollow middles of the voids.
The poor spots that lost everything, the neighbours that got robbed, all the way back at the start, blown up now to the sheer size of the sky.
the poor spots, blown up to the size of the sky. That is the far, far end of the rich get richer story you first heard on a window pane. The emptied-out losers are these unthinkable voids, the greedy winners are the blazing knots, and the threads run taut between the two. The whole universe, zoomed all the way out, is filaments and walls wrapped around enormous empty voids. Foam. Cosmic foam, as far as you can see in any direction.
Threads round the voids, dew on a spider web. The galaxies are the beads of dew strung only ever along the strands, and the whole wide middle of every loop is nothing at all but empty air.
Dew on a spider web is very nearly the perfect picture, and you reached it yourself, which pleases me more than I'll say. That is the cosmic web, the largest single pattern there is. Every galaxy in existence, and all the dark matter standing behind them, arranged into one vast connected filigree of threads and walls and knots and holes. So far as we know, it is the biggest structure that exists anywhere.
And where are we in all of it? The Milky Way, our own lot? Are we out marooned in a void somewhere, or up on one of the threads, or in one of the great knots?
We are in the lit-up part, never fear. You're not stranded in a void. Our galaxy sits with a small handful of others in a modest little group, and that group hangs off the outskirts of a much larger crowd, and all of it is strung along the glowing web. We live on the scaffolding, out toward the busy edge of a busy region, a single bead of dew on one of the strands, looking out along the threads at all the other beads.
So it's real then? All of it? Not a metaphor, not a model I meant to take on faith. A thing you could put your actual finger on. But let me be the annoying skeptic for one last second, because it is my job. Nobody has stood outside the universe and taken the photograph you're describing. So how does anyone actually know it's threads and voids, and not just an even sprinkle, and we're all seeing shapes in the clouds?
The best kind of question, and there is a clean, flat answer to it. Astronomers went out and did something enormously patient. They measured the positions of a huge number of galaxies, and not just where each one sits on the flat of the sky, but how far off it is, so they could set every one in real depth, in 3 dimensions. And then they mapped them, all of them together, into one single great chart of where the galaxies truly are.
And if it were a random sprinkle after all, that chart would come out looking like static. Like noise on an old screen, evenly speckled, no rhyme or reason to any of it.
Evenly speckled, no pattern anywhere in it. But that is emphatically not what came out of the chart. What came out was the web. Threads and knots, and great blank staring voids, unmistakable, drawn out in the real, measured positions of real galaxies. We did not dream the web up from a theory and then go hunting the sky for it to flatter ourselves. We built an honest map of where the galaxies actually are, and the web was simply there in it, already drawn, waiting for us.
So it really is there. The galaxies really do hang in threads around great holes, and every strand of that, hang on, let me get there before you do, every strand of it started as one of your freckles.
Every strand, every knot, every yawning void. Each one was a freckle, one of the faint, warm and cool speckles on the baby photo, on the smoothest face that ever was. Gravity took a near-perfect smoothness with the very faintest freckles laid on it, and, given all the time in the world, and one invisible scaffolding to build upon, grew those freckles into every last bit of this. The mountains and the hollow places both.
So my 2 photographs really are the same photograph. I laid them down on the table at the start like they couldn't possibly be the same thing, the smooth grey infant and the blazing structured now. And they are the same freckles. One of them has just had billions of years of patient gravity to grow all the way up.
The same freckles the whole way through. You were never holding 2 different subjects. You were holding one single subject, caught at two different ages, and everything that lies between the two of them, all of tonight, is one rigged little loop where the rich get richer, an invisible frame raised first in the dark, ordinary matter pouring in afterward to light it up, the small forever gathering into the large, and a web of galaxies hung across a sky full of enormous empty holes.
I'll say it plainly. Of everything you've walked me through, this might be the one that has rearranged me the most. Not because it's the strangest thing I've heard from you, but because it took the part I was flat certain was the whole show, the galaxies, and quietly made them the paint, and made the invisible stuff the wall. I keep looking at the window thinking, it's mostly holes, the frame is mostly dark, and the lights are only where the paint happened to pool.
Then it did its work on you tonight. Hold that feeling close. It means you are finally seeing the universe at the size it truly is, instead of the handful of parts that happen to glow. And now, before I send you up those stairs, I have to spoil one thing. This lovely web, all lit up with its galaxies. Look closer at what those first galaxies are actually made of, and you'll find a problem.
Of course there is. There's always a problem. What's wrong with my beautiful web now?
Nothing is wrong with it. But think back to what it was that poured into those dark valleys to make the first stars. The ordinary matter. And what was the ordinary matter back then, at that early hour? Cast your mind all the way back to the furnace, to the very first few minutes of everything there was. What did that furnace manage to cook, and what did it never once get around to?
The lightest stuff only, hydrogen and helium. The furnace made those two and then slammed itself shut before it could make a single thing heavier. You told me that. Nothing heavier than a whisper ever came out of the Big Bang.
Nothing heavier than a whisper. So the very first galaxies, lit up so proudly inside the dark valleys, they are built of hydrogen and helium, and essentially nothing else at all in them. And here is the thing to carry up the stairs tonight and lie awake, turning over in the dark. A galaxy made of nothing whatever but hydrogen and helium, for all its blaze and all its fire, is a dead thing.
Dead? It's full of stars. It's on fire. How on earth is that dead?
Because there is no carbon anywhere in it, no oxygen, no iron, no calcium, not one single grain of gold. None of the stuff you are actually made of. The carbon in every cell of you, the oxygen in every breath you draw, the iron riding this very second in your blood. The Big Bang never made one atom of any of it. It is not in the web yet, not one speck of it anywhere in all that fire.
So the web lights up, and it lights up with all the wrong ingredients. Everything that could ever go on to become a person, or a planet, or a single green leaf, none of it exists yet. It's all just hydrogen and helium blazing away, down in the dark valleys.
All of it still missing. Every heavy atom that would ever come to matter to anything alive had to be forged somewhere, later, after the web had already lit up, inside a furnace that had not so much as flickered on at the point where tonight's story sets us down.
And I'm going to guess that the furnace is the one single thing in this whole web that you have just spent the entire evening teaching me how to build. The stars.
The stars. Every single one of them. A furnace. That is the next night's whole story. How the first stars, lit up inside the web, began, in their blazing hearts, and then in their violent deaths, to cook every element the Big Bang never managed to make, including every last one of them, the ones that you yourself are made of.
So the web isn't the end of the building at all then. It's only where the building moves to next. Gravity did its part of the job. Smooth to structured, freckles to filaments, the frame and the paint and the first lights coming on. And now the story climbs down inside one of those very lights, down into a single star, to go and find out where I actually came from.
Down inside a single star. That is exactly where we go next.
Then I'll carry the 2 photographs up the stairs with me. the smooth grey infant and the blazing web, one subject caught at two ages. And I'll carry the loose thread up right alongside them. That every galaxy I just watched the two of us build is, so far, lifeless, full of light, and utterly empty of everything that could ever, one distant day, look back up at it. And that the fixing of that, the cooking of the carbon and the iron and all the rest of me, is waiting, right now, inside the heart of a star. I came down here tonight dead sure that smooth things stay smooth, and I'm going back up knowing that smooth was only ever the top of the hill, and that the fall took billions of years and built the entire sky. Good night. I'll be down early, light the furnace.